Great. So I'll jump right in and introduce our guest, Brigitte Shearer. Brigitte, as you may know, is the Director of Parks and Rec and has been so for 3 years, Brigitte? Yeah, right. And I believe she lives in San Mateo, but has been really an amazing partner to me as a poet laureate emerita now, and has been quite a breath of fresh air to the Parks and Rec department and all of the projects that she's brought forth in Belmont. And so I invited her here tonight to come and speak with us about what the Parks and Rec does, about our open space master plan, about the recreation activities in Belmont, and to listen to and ask questions about how racism and anti-racism work might be brought into more deeper consideration in Brigitte's department. And I want to make clear that Brigitte has control over one department, and so the many of the questions that we have brought up regarding the police department and the city council members are really outside of Brigitte's purview in terms of her role. And so I want to make sure that we're clear that we're talking to Brigitte about what is specifically in her role. So I'm going to go ahead and mute folks who are not on mute, including myself, and turn it over to Brigitte. Thank you so much for being here to talk to us and to being open to hearing what we might share. Thanks so much.
Sure thing. Thank you so much for inviting me, Jackie. We have become great friends over the last 3 years, so I hope that continues, even though you're passing the Poet Laureate hat. And Erica, you and I spoke just last week, so unfortunately this is going to sound very familiar to you, so bear with me on that. Okay, let me close my door here and bear with me if I pop out. I've got a little dog that sometimes needs to be very near me and sometimes not, so hold on. Here we go. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get right to it here. Okay. Can we see? All right. Can you see the whole presentation? Somebody just, I can't see you guys anymore, so can somebody just unmute and say, yes, you can see it?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan project that we've undertaken this year, and I think that will lead to the other types of discussions and the topics that Jackie alluded to earlier. So let me just kind of get through this plan description, and then we'll let the conversation flow as it will after that. So the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan is a vision for the next 15 years of Belmont's public recreation and communal spaces. So I'm going to talk to you about where we are in the project so far, what we've done to date, and then we're going to talk about what's out there today and who's using it and how's it being used, and then want to hear something about what's the feedback? Where are we not meeting needs? What kind of programming is missing for different types of populations and abilities and needs, and where do we have opportunities for improvement, not just in our public spaces, but also in the kinds of activities and programs that we offer. So our plan is called the Belmont PROS plan, PROS being Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. And we put a little branding tagline to that. We're calling it, Let's Build Our Backyard. And the reason we chose that tagline was twofold. Number one, as you know, there's a lot of development happening in Belmont, and a lot of that is going to be high density housing that's near our transit corridor. Those folks might have a balcony, might have a little bit of communal recreational space in their housing development, but they're going to need other places to go, and those need to be extensions of what would be a more traditional backyard for your typical single family home and homeowner. We also recognize that in Belmont, we don't have acres of undeveloped land just ready and waiting for a park to be built on it. So we have to get creative about our spaces. And so we need to look on under every nook and cranny and see where we might be able to carve out a little bit of space for a creative amenity or a creative use that might feel like somebody's backyard, just to give more of those opportunities to our population. So here's the overview of what my department oversees in terms of parks and facilities. And I hope you're all familiar with all 23 of these spaces, but maybe not. This plan is also a good reminder to the community of what we do have. And maybe it's a good idea sometimes to get out of your immediate neighborhood and sort of do a little scavenger hunt and explore and take note of some other parks and opportunities that we do have throughout the city. So as you know, we have open space. We have over 300 acres of open space. We have several parks and playgrounds throughout the city. We have a joint use agreement with the school district about some athletic fields that we maintain, and then we share the use of them with the school, and that works out beautifully. And we have a couple of little nuggets of potential future park space that we can develop, but we're always looking for more. So this plan is going to set the framework for how to go forward for about a 15-year horizon for our parks and open spaces and our outdoor recreational programming. The last time a plan like this was done was in 1992. And as you can imagine, quite a few things have changed in Belmont since then. And so it's time to sort of take a moment to reset, to update and look forward. What are future recreational trends? What are going to be our demographic needs in the community? What sort of health and wellness objectives do we want to try to address in our future programming? So this is going to be a very high level plan. This is not going to tell us, oh, we need 3 swing sets over here and we need a new playground over here, and this is what it's going to look like. This is going to give us an idea of what we have, where we have some gaps and deficiencies in what we offer, and give us a loose prioritization of where we should address things as resources become available. So we have some guiding principles for how we're going to do that. First of all, we want to make sure that as we look forward, that we are thinking about equitable access, thinking about inclusion, and that we're addressing all sorts of interests and abilities and ages. Just to put it simply, not every child is an athlete, and we have a lot of sports fields. Do we have enough opportunities for children that prefer other types of non-athletic activities? We want to make sure that we are committed to environmental resilience and sustainability in our open spaces, but also in our parks that have trees and waterways. We want to honor our natural resources. We want to make sure that we are focusing on health and well-being in our community. If nothing else, the last year has told us that parks and open spaces are invaluable to meet that need, and that need has grown significantly. Hopefully this last year has raised everybody's awareness for the importance of parks and maintaining and creating valuable park spaces. And again, we need to be able to adapt as conditions change. There are recreational sports that didn't exist 30 years ago, and we need to figure out how to incorporate those into our future planning. And we need to be able to adapt to other changes that might come our way. As an example, some parks might want to offer Wi-Fi for all the people that are now working from home and can be flexible about where they work. That's not something that was on anybody's radar 30 years ago, for sure. And as we go through this community process, we want to make sure we're as transparent as possible. And in doing so, we did, I guess that was a couple slides ago, in an effort to be as transparent as possible, we have a website. It's called belmontprosplan.com. And there we are putting all sorts of information, these types of presentations, comments from the community that we've received, and relevant resource documents and upcoming events and things like that will appear on that website. So we have sort of a one-stop shop for people to get information about this program. So on our timeline, we're roughly at the halfway mark. We might be stretching things beyond September and November of this year just to make sure that we give all the aspects of this plan their proper due. So to date, we've kicked off the project. We've reviewed historical documents. We've come up with an engagement plan. We established an advisory committee that is helping us at a couple of key milestones throughout this process. We developed the website that I talked about. We visited every park and open space in the city with our consultants, and just to get sort of an existing condition assessment of what we have. And it's always interesting to take a look at our amenities with someone else who's not from the community, and you kind of see your spaces sometimes through a different lens, and it sometimes gets the creative juices flowing in a new way. So it's been really fun to do that assessment. Now we're starting to gather the recommendations and some prioritization. We did a community-wide survey. I hope you all participated in that a couple of months ago. And I'll show you some examples of the types of data and findings that we got from that survey. We're doing the kind of stakeholder and public outreach. Tonight is an example of that. And in the coming weeks, we're going to start talking about some implementation ideas and starting to kind of put some shape to this plan. Drafting the final plan and recommendations and adoption, again, will likely happen beyond November, probably more into the early part of 2022. Again, this is not a process we need to rush, and we want to make sure that that we're hearing the community and incorporating the community's input into a robust plan that we all are comfortable with. So here's an example of the type of existing site assessment that we've done. This is Alexander Park in our Sterling Downs neighborhood. So we have an aerial view of it, some photographs of some of the features, and just a rough assessment here you can see of what's working well. And we have some new restrooms there. Our tennis courts are in fair condition. They're actually getting resurfaced hopefully later this year. But we have some things that we've identified are in poor condition and room for improvement. And so we've done this sort of assessment for every park in Belmont. In our survey, that was an online survey. Because of COVID, we couldn't do a whole lot of the community engagement and special event outreach that I much prefer to do for these types of things. But we did get quite a few responses, over 2,800 responses. We did get responses from residents and non-residents. As you know, we all go and enjoy Golden Gate Park. So, so we do have other people from outside Belmont coming and enjoying our parks and amenities. And so it's important to hear from those folks. But, you know, it is the Belmont appointed commissioners and the Belmont elected city council members who are ultimately going to be approving this plan. And so here's an example of the type of data that we found. We had a very high response of the reason people use our parks, facilities, and open spaces was for individual exercise. And here you can see the solid line are the responses from Belmont residents, and the dashed lines are non-residents. So it makes sense. Non-residents probably come here to maybe to hike and water dog, and that might be the only reason that they come to Belmont. So it doesn't surprise us to have this type of slight variation in the responses, but generally the resident and non-resident responses are fairly aligned here. People come here to commune with nature. They want to enjoy peace and quiet and gather with family and friends. They were not interested in learning something new when they come to our parks and open spaces. So just some interesting tidbits from our findings. Here's another example of our who rated our parks and athletic facilities. Either they rated them excellent or very good. Our residents really like Twin Pines Park and the Belmont Sports Complex. Our non-residents didn't rate that highly. Maybe they don't know about it, or maybe they don't visit it, or maybe they don't like it as much. That's okay too. But we're happy to report that our residents do like some of the parks that we are most proud of here in Belmont. Similarly, we ask what types of things would enhance your experience specifically within the open space. And everybody was aligned in the idea that we need to continue to and improve our repair and maintenance of our existing trails. Our non-residents wanted wanted additional trails, residents not so much. But on the other items, they were again fairly well aligned in their interests. Here's another question. What are some kinds of programs that might enhance the experience? And we have a lot of folks interested in volunteering, and we are working on building a more robust volunteer program. It's been a little difficult to do in COVID when gathering was discouraged, but we hope to rebuild that in the coming year. Our residents also wanted some nature-oriented activities. As an example, whenever we have offered a hiking program for our middle schoolers or young teens, those programs are fully subscribed in just the blink of an eye. So we know that that's something that people want, and we're finding ways to offer more of those types of programs. Then we also, as I mentioned, we have athletic fields. 4 of them are fields that we share with the local school district. And then we have our Belmont Sports Complex that has a new synthetic turf on its largest field. And then the city owns the Cipriani Park and McDougall fields. And we do share those with the adjacent schools, but we, the city, maintain them and schedule them. So what are we doing today? We're talking about existing conditions. So this would be an opportunity for you to give me any kind of feedback about our amenities and our programs and unmet needs out there. And then a little more sort of an infrastructure question and a future programming question. What are some things that you would like us to see us create or build or do differently than we do today? So I'll unshare my screen and we can start that discussion.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all that information. It's really amazing because I never paid that close attention to that in that detail. So that's great. Great to see it, and great to see that you're out and seeking input from the community. So I'd like to open it up to questions and comments. And since we're such a small group, I think we can just go ahead and chime in as needed. I think my first question would be, I think who's on the advisory committee?
Oh, that's a good question. So the advisory committee has, it has 3 park and rec commissioners. It has 1 planning commissioner, and then it has representatives from the youth sports community, has some representatives from the senior communities. We tried to get representatives from just about every neighborhood. We have a business owner. We have 2 business owners, somebody with young children, somebody with teenagers, some more active, outdoor park users, and I think that's it. So we kind of put together a matrix and tried to get as broad a distribution as possible. I think on our project website now we have sort of bios of all of those commissioners or all those advisory committee members listed. If it's not up now, it will be shortly.
Would you be willing to share? I mean, that would be an amazing place to start is just what's the racial makeup of that committee and how are they chosen?
So we do have 1 person of color who is a representative there. We had to kind of reach out to identify some people who might be candidates.
I mean, is that group set in stone in terms of like, that's the set group, or is it something that could be expanded? Because it sounds like there's definitely room for improvement as almost square one, right?
Right. So right now we have, as I said, it's about 15 people. We've had 2 of our 4 meetings so far. So I think we're on our way there with the group that we have.
Right. It would be hard to expand, you think?
Yeah. If the group gets a little too large, it becomes unwieldy for the work that we're asking them to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And how long is the term?
We're probably going to have 2 more meetings, and I'm guessing one might be in September, and then one might be later on in the year. After that.
And then how do people become part of the advisory committee?
how did people become part of the advisory committee? We reached out to individuals or asked for suggestions of names of people, and
But asked who?
I'm sorry.
Who did you ask for names of
I
people?
asked some. That's a good question. Reached out to, for example, for a representative from the senior community. I asked my senior services recreation supervisor to give some suggestions. And then I reached out to different neighborhood homeowner, what are they called? Homeowner groups or homeowner association or neighborhood groups, and asked those representatives if I could get a representative from that area. So again, that's
So I don't think there's anything wrong with
yeah,
asking that way. But I think one of the things that happens sometimes is people who are members of the community who aren't in a homeowners association or part of the senior center or whatever may be very interested in participating, but never ever get the opportunity because they don't hear about it.
right.
I live in Western Hills. We are a lot of condos and townhouses,
Okay.
and we don't even get put on the map sometimes.
Okay.
I talked to Davina, heard about this years ago,
Okay.
because the focus is always on single family homeowners. So big pools of people, I think, who may be interested get missed.
Yeah.
So that might just be something to consider for the future.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with reaching out to the context that you know, but I think sometimes to bring in other voices, you want to go outside of that box.
Right. So that is a great point, and that's absolutely a valid point. And in fact, when we were sending out information about the survey, I'm curious, did you hear about our survey?
I did not.
See, this is interesting. This is where we need to learn. This is great that we're having this conversation, because I got from our community development department a list of the apartments buildings, and so maybe your area where you're living didn't fall under that, but it was a list of all the apartment buildings in Belmont, and then the contact for whoever the property manager was or the owner. And I sent each of those people, hey, here's a flyer, please post this flyer or distribute it electronically. And I thought, boy, why haven't we done that before? But how do we reach people?
And here's the thing, I'm in a condo. We don't have a property manager. We are all individual owners. Okay. So each one of us would have to receive something. Otherwise, there would be no one contact. To reach out to.
Okay, but how do we reach you? This is really interesting. How do we reach you? Because
I'll tell you, when they want to pave the streets, I get a letter.
Okay.
Right. Public Works knows how to reach me. And we all get those letters. So maybe ask them. I don't know.
Maybe we may, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's, hey, we just have to do a mailer. We're always trying to, save dollars where we do. And we push a lot out through social media and through our, city website and all that. But I do find, we don't reach people. And I know people are busy, and sometimes, you get, information overload, but it's a really good point. It's a really good point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have some other questions, but I'd love to other folks to chime in here. And I actually coming back to, I think, related to what Trina was saying and my question about reaching people, I think part of it is we all know it's who we know, right? And so if you have one person of color out of 15 on your advisory committee, think about who gets notified and who's being updated there, right? And so, involving more people of color on the advisory board might be able to inform you how to reach people and who are underrepresented there.
And adding to that, even it's not ideal. I'd still want to get more people on the advisory board to have spaces for voices. But if something happens where you can't get those voices and you know those parties exist in the city, creating an empty chair idea of like, and how would this idea affect this community? Right? Asking those questions. If you can't get someone to be that voice, at least have the team ask, wait a minute, how does this affect such and such community? I wanted to add, I a couple years ago, I attended went to the National Park Rosie the Riveter Museum up in Richmond. And that was one of the first times I actually thought about a park being an urban space. And I particularly liked up there. I had the privilege of hearing the park ranger, Betty Reed Soskin speak. She's one of our oldest, one of the oldest rangers. And she spoke from the perspective of Black people in Richmond during World War II and really threw out a lot of misconceptions of who Rosie the Riveter was and why Black women were not allowed to be Rosie the Riveter, right? And it was a wonderful presentation. Are there places within Belmont, stories that have not been told about marginalized communities, redlining spaces? Where is there a chance to do park and recs in an urban space with an urban story?
That's interesting. Okay.
That just made me think about something where, I know Jackie sent out earlier the racial makeup of Belmont. And so if you think just about Belmont, it's not crazy diverse. But if you look at your survey, you had 51% non-residents fill out that survey. And I don't know if you collected racial data, ethnicity data or not, but Belmont is its own little place, but we're also part of a larger community that clearly people come to. Yeah, just a thought.
Right. No, that's absolutely well taken. Yep.
And building off of that, I just wanted to add to, another thing that eye-opening to me, we often tell the story of the indigenous people the land that we've taken, but we speak about them in the past tense. They're here present day, those communities. So if the Park and Recs does do a nod to the people in the past, please don't archaic them. Talk about the present community.
Right. No, that's excellent. Yeah, there's a lot of rich history right in Twin Pines Park, right, about the communities that were there long before we came along.
Right. I mean, that I would also bring that back into the conversation as well. If you go, I don't know if anybody here has been into the Belmont History Museum, which is a small room in the back, and it basically is the indigenous community is some relics that were uncovered while Twin Pines was being turned into a park at some point, or renovations were being made. And I would really love to engage the local indigenous community in being able to not have their history or present day experiences erased. So how can, as Erica was saying, and you can even see on our data that we actually have, it says that we have a percentage, albeit 0.2% of American Indian in Belmont. And so, but also in our surrounding communities. So reaching out and getting input on that land seems to be a really cornerstone place to pursue. How about Debbie?
Hi, I'm sorry. I have a friend in Gilroy whose farm almost caught on fire, and she's been dealing with that. So I've been a little bit distracted. So sorry about being in and out. But anyway, I mean, I was just interested in the intersection between child care and Parks and Rec. And if you could speak a little bit to that, I mean, I just think there's going to be a lot of federal money available to cities to create childcare opportunities, and, to do it in a way that, could be beneficial to people who aren't super high income in
Sure.
our community. So anyway, I'm just curious about where you see that. What is the role of Park and Rec with childcare?
Well, actually, our Parks and Rec department has a licensed childcare program. It's at the Barrett Community Center, and it's been around in various iterations for many years, and it was and has been thriving for the last several years. And non-COVID times, it offers spaces to up to 75 children, and it is always fully subscribed. So that's a commitment that the city has made to the community. We are not the lowest cost childcare out there, but we are definitely not the highest cost childcare out there. So we're trying to make sure that we maintain an affordable option for the community. We are pretty limited on space, so it's unlikely that we'll be able to expand with the existing environment there. We do need to wait and see what happens when the state provides some funding for more preschool, and they're also making transitional kindergarten available for more children. So that might change who needs care when. But this year has certainly highlighted the fact that childcare is critical to allowing women to be in the workplace on a consistent basis. So it's a commitment that Belmont has made for quite a while. That's for preschool childcare, and then we do also offer summer camps and extracurricular after-school care for our elementary school and middle school age children.
Right. I'm kind of aware of those programs. When my twins were little, I looked into the Belmont, and it was just too expensive. I couldn't possibly afford to send my twins there, so. But I'm also thinking that, well, maybe there's space at the school sites, if they're going to pay for pre-K. I think Newsom just made a commitment that, anyway. Yeah, I mean, I just think affordable childcare is really important for everybody. And I think there's, of course, huge gaps, and it's just, and I do think that cities have responsibility to, find that state funding, find that federal funding, and create programs that really benefit, lower income folks who may live in our community, or can use it, maybe surrounding communities, maybe be part of a countywide system that, that Belmont is, because I do think that, I think statistics show that single mothers, people of color who are single mothers really bear the brunt of having really the worst access to good quality childcare.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we fit in with that, or if we can fit into a solution. Anyway, just some ideas.
Interesting. Thank you.
Also, Bridget, I want to call your attention to the link in the chat that Erica put there. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Sagarete Land Trust. It's active in Oakland, but it might be a really great resource. They are, it's a group of women who are rematriating lands in Oakland, and they advise a lot of groups in the area, and so I would encourage you to reach out to them and see if there's somebody there who could advise.
Great, thank you. Thank you, wonderful.
So we had a few other questions come up, but I want to leave room for other people if you had anything come up, since I don't want to just kind of do all the questioning. Let me know.
Well, I'll just throw out there, are you visiting our parks? Are you visiting our open spaces? Are you participating in our programs? If yes, what do you like? What do you not like? If no, why not?
Well, I personally love and adore Twin Pines Park and spend a lot of time there, as well as Water Dog Lake. Just my, favorite places to be and spend time there with my kids, biking and hiking. I would love to see Twin Pines Park protected, because I think it's in danger of being engulfed by the development, and I would protect it and expand it as much as possible.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I have a comment on Twin Pines Park. I used to go there a ton when my kids were little, of course, and loved it. And we would access the creek. I mean, the creek was like, to me, the creek is like a miracle in that park. And I would like to see the creek more accessible and more, and kind of like, I don't know, just as a space for kids to explore, because creeks are rare for our children to explore. And honestly, I just think creeks are a miracle in this world. So my husband and I lead a lot of creek walks for the Scouts, for our religious community. He's a biologist. So, but anyway, I just think that creek could be more accessible and more of a feature in that park, because
So you're right on with where we're going. So in 2018, we did a master plan just for Twin Pines Park. And that's definitely something that the community said, hey, we love that this downtown park, within walking distance of El Camino and all that, is such a natural beauty, right? It's a gem, it's a jewel, we called it. And it has the unique feature of having the creek be accessible, right? An adventurous child could get down, could scramble down there, but not everybody can. And we need to make sure that access to the creek is something that doesn't damage the park if too many people do it. So in this master plan, one of the items that came out as a recommendation was to create and construct a proper way to access that creek. So more people could do it and could do it safely without harming the environment. Now, it turns out that that separate from that master plan, there's also a plan to do some creek bank restoration along that, particularly that section of the creek, because there's been quite a bit of erosion, and that leads to sediment and flooding further downstream. So by fixing the creek banks upstream, we solve a downstream problem. And the city is working with the County Sea Level Rise Agency and City of San Carlos to make that improvement. And we actually got some grant monies to at least do the design and some permitting for that improvement, and are working on potentially getting some other sort of infrastructure funds from the state to actually do the construction of that creek bank restoration and maybe some additional flood control measures. So that's all great work that's done sort of below the surface, if you will. And then the beauty of it is then when they complete the infrastructure repairs, what they put on top of it would be the elements of our master plan to build a proper pathway down to the creek to make that accessible. So it's going to be if this all comes together the way it's looking like it will, it's going to be a win-win, in that it's going to protect the creek, protect the people downstream from us, and it'll put a better surface amenity out there for our park visitors. So fingers crossed that it all happens.
I hope so. It sounds great.
You're right on. That's a great suggestion. And yeah, I love nothing better than to see kids, making little boats and watching them float down that creek. That's wonderful.
Debbie, that's a really good point. And hi, Brigitte, I'm Michelle. And I live within walking distance of Twin Pines and walk there a lot. And I have watched in horror with the erosion of the creek banks. And I just hope that, they've been talking about restoring them for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty soon those houses are gonna be in the creek.
Hmm.
It's just, it's getting worse and worse I've lived here 28 years this
Mhm.
month. And it's just, you know, I hope it's not planning, thinking, and no action, and then the disaster happens.
Right.
So,
Right. Well, right now, what's changed is that there are some dollars. So we are, it's still going to take a long time to get this done, but we now have some dollars to put with it to move things forward.
yeah, I think you're gonna need some emergency help, because just getting to a, getting consultants to start building a plan, it is gonna take a long time, and one good rainstorm is gonna wipe that out.
Mm-hmm.
So I've spent most time at Water Dog, as I live closest to Water Dog and Hidden Canyon. And I love both. I don't have any complaints about any of them. I was inspired by your presentation earlier of all the open spaces there are in Belmont, and I'm ashamed that I haven't been to more of them. So I'm inspired to go check them out now.
Okay. All right. Right.
I have a comment about the Hastings tot lot. I used to bring my kids there when they were little, and we were always the only people using it.
Mhm.
And right next to the tot lot sign, there was a sign, mountain lion habitat. I just always cracked me up there. Right next to there was a mountain lion habitat. And I just thought, well, oh, what the heck, we'll just,
Yeah. Somebody
Okay.
sent me a photo of a big old rattlesnake that was right on the trail today. So be careful
wow.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that the Hastings tot lot could use a little bit of improvement as well.
Well, it was a long time ago. My kids are 19 now. So.
Okay. Right. And I think one of your sons did an Eagle Scout project for us, right?
He did. Yeah. Alexi did a bridge in
Bridge.
San Juan Canyon. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a fun project. He had a good time with that.
Yeah.
Thanks for remembering. That's pretty great.
We're very grateful for our volunteers, and the Eagle Scouts are just a phenomenal. They've done some really great things for us out there in the open space.
It's great. Yep.
So one of the questions that came up earlier, prior to our meeting when we were talking amongst ourselves is which communities feel safe in Belmont public spaces and which do not. And what I might feel as safe may be totally different from somebody else. And a Black person feeling safe, especially in particularly Twin Pines Park, which is right next to the police station. So I'm wondering if you have any data on safety, feeling of safety, and how you would go about gathering that information.
So I do not have any data right at my disposal for Twin Pines Park, but we did actually ask that question in our survey. I don't have the responses right off the top of my head, but all the survey responses are actually available on our website, the BelmontProsPlan.com website, so you can take a look there. And so we asked people whether they felt safe in our open spaces and in our parks, and so you can take a look there. Again, I don't have that.
I think specifically
off the top of my
for our conversation around race here, and if you don't really know the racial makeup of who responded, I think it's,
we do have some, not everybody answered that question on our survey. So I'm not sure if I would feel comfortable sort of slicing and dicing the data a little too far to come to a conclusion on that. So that might be something where some more conversation would be necessary.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I was just going to say also, I believe a lot of those communities wouldn't answer if you asked. Because they may feel that, well, what are you going to do with the information? Nothing ever happens, right? They have to have a certain level of trust to hear. And just want to throw out, because we don't have the data does not mean it doesn't exist.
Oh, absolutely. And as I was saying to Jackie earlier, right, we don't know what we don't know. And so it's a matter of, continuing to ask and asking different ways and different places and changing our questions. So I'm very open to any suggestions for how to do that, and how to do that effectively.
Right. I mean, it seems like to me, Bridget, where you're getting information from is going to be really important. And I'm wondering if do you even have a, racial, diversity, equity, inclusion as part of the plan? Has it been a subject of the plan at all?
As part of our pros plan?
Yeah, as you're writing your plans, is race, is it even spoken about or considered?
It is one of our guiding principles, but it has not been something that we have explicitly discussed yet.
Yeah.
So good point that we can kind of drill down on that a little more.
Yeah. I mean, I can keep going if you all.
Well, I have a question, just a general question, Bridget, about trees.
Yes.
And, I don't know, like in San Carlos, they are, I guess, I don't know, I've heard they're cutting down all the big eucalyptus trees. And I see that as highly problematical in terms of carbon sequestering, in terms of habitat for ravens, for owls who require large, high, tall trees. And I just find it very, I don't know, kind of short-sighted and alarmist to say, oh, we're going to cut down all the eucalyptus, or, because we don't like them for some reason. And anyway, just wondered, about, keeping our trees is pretty important, and
So I absolutely agree with you. I'll amend that phrase just a little bit and say keeping the right trees is really important. And a eucalyptus tree is not a native tree, and it's actually considered invasive, and it does damage the soil around it. And because of some of the bark and things are acidic. And, we have some eucalyptus trees in Twin Pines Park, and we've had some limb failures, and some pretty significant limb failures on the eucalyptus trees. They are a higher risk than some other trees. So, oh, look at you.
these are my trees.
So anyway, that's not to say that we're going to go clear cut all the eucalyptus trees, but we are taking a look at the eucalyptus trees in Twin Pines Park.
Well, there's a lot of mixed data about eucalyptus trees.
Okay.
And there's a lot of new studies about eucalyptus trees.
Okay.
So I don't think it's so clear that eucalyptus are damaging or harmful. I think there's a lot of new information that I can probably, I don't know, at least mixed information, shall we say.
Okay.
So
Well,
I've lived under these eucalyptus trees for 20 years. My husband's lived under them for 60. So we're all still here. And plants seem to thrive under these eucalyptus trees.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, anyway, that's my pitch for saving the eucalyptus trees.
Okay.
But also the redwoods are super important. I mean, there's these timber harvest plans up in Mendocino that, Cal Fire is devastating forests up there. And it's pathetic, and young people are basically facing down chainsaws right now, even as we speak.
Wow.
There's tree sitters in Mendocino, because those coastal redwoods need to be saved.
Right.
I mean, it's just, Cal Fire gets their money from cutting down trees and selling these contracts. It's just like, are you kidding me right now? Anyway, I know that's not Belmont.
I assure you, Belmont is very proud of its trees and its tree canopy, and we work hard to maintain that. The last couple of years have been very tough on our trees, as you can imagine, with not a lot of rain. The trees get stressed, and then they're a little more vulnerable to, to infestation of different kinds. And we see that, if you look at the hillsides, they're not as robust green as they have been in better years. But we're still working on that. The city has a tree removal process, right? When somebody takes out a tree, they're required to plant another one. We do that at least 1 for 1, if not 1 for 2, when we take out trees in the city. So we're working hard to maintain and improve the canopy where we can.
Right. And let me just say that, taking out a 100-foot tree and replacing it with 2 seedlings is not is not really, it's practically nothing, just in terms of sequestering carbon, be great in 50, 60 years, but anyway, but yeah, but I'm glad that, trees are important, and sorry for my ranting.
No, I appreciate it. And if you'd like to send me any of
I'll send you some information on the eucalyptus, because I think, anyway, they're my spiritual guides. So I have to say goodnight to them every night. So,
Okay, all right. Okay, great.
So
Thanks, Debbie. So it's 7:57 and we try to stay to strict time here. So I'm wondering if there's any last thoughts we'd like to leave Brigitte with in terms of how to move forward. What I hear you saying, Brigitte, is that you are eager to get input, but aren't exactly sure how to reach people who are underrepresented in Parks and Rec, the open space project. And so how, what can we leave Brigitte with in terms of meeting that goal?
Well, and I'll say, right, that I would put that forth to you regardless of the pros plan at any time with anything that we do, and any of our programs, our special events, our parks and spaces. If there's a suggestion for how to do it better tomorrow, I would like to know.
Yeah.
Right?
Brigitte, I just have a thought about, like people who are living in, rental units or apartments, or, even, that, I don't know, that might be a place to survey, like, do you use the parks? What parks are you using? How can we make it more accessible, friendlier, just so that you have input. I mean, like, longtime Belmont residents may be more likely to respond to a survey, and people who maybe just moved here, or, may not feel as, connected to the community yet they're living here.
Right.
I don't know.
And that's why I think it has to be a really active recruitment and retention program, and particularly, I also want to add, I know we talked about this privately, but I want to just, I guess, put a finer point on it, that commissioners and who's chosen to support Parks and Rec are often the feeders to council members. And that's where people get experience. And so I actually really am disturbed to find out that there's only one person of color on the advisory committee, right?
Let me be clear. The advisory committee is a committee just for the pros plan.
Got it.
Parks and Rec Commission.
From the commission, exactly. Yeah. I know those are two different, but those are two areas where it seems like almost an obvious place to start. How do we actually say that we want to increase the representation, by neighborhood, and bring in more BIPOC voices there, not only to inform the plan, but also as feeders for city council. And that, I feel, me personally, has to be active recruitment, not just, putting something out there and then choosing from the people who apply, but it has to be an active, conscious recruitment, and then retention and support for those people who are applying. So anyway, anybody else want to leave a final thought? Maybe even you, Brigitte.
I'm good. This is, thank you. I appreciate everybody's comments, and you know how to reach me. I'm happy to have additional conversations, and open to taking suggestions. In fact, I would love to have contact information from everybody. So maybe if you could all send me an email, so I have it, and I could keep you on my list of people to go to and to reach out to. That's what I need.
That would be awesome. And I would encourage you to reach out to anybody here, and have us help you reach folks that you
Great.
may not
Great.
be reaching. So
Yep.
great. Thank you. Thank you, Brigitte. It's great to see you in this context, and great. Thank you all for our.
Thanks, Bridget, for coming. I really appreciate
fantastic.
it.
You bet. Thank you,
It was
everybody.
Great.
We'll share this information with our wider group, the recording, and encourage them also, if you're watching the recording, I encourage you also to reach out to Brigitte. Actually, let me speak it. It's a B Shearer, BSHEARER @belmont.gov. So thank you all. Have a great evening.
All right.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.